Okay, hey everybody, my name is Professor Kelsey Coes. This is the Divination Academy, and today we are in the Dark Goddess Devotionals and we are doing Baba Yaga. I am so excited. Actually, I'm more excited than I thought I was going to be to do her, to be perfectly honest. Um, it's been a bit since I've actually personally worked with her. So when I put her on the list to start working to have her be in this class, specifically because Honey asked for her to ask for me to do her. And also like she's Slavic and Russian and really European. And it's just, I feel like that gets missed a lot. So I was really excited to actually kind of do her. But when I went back into like revisiting and reworking with her, like I do with every deity before I introduce them to you, if it's not somebody I'm currently working with, um, and when I like really dig deep and like re-go into my research for them, she just really started to excite me so much. While I was creating the study guide and while I was working with her again and while she's like been coming up and being present in my life again. So I'm actually like I'm really excited. This meditation that we're gonna do today and where I'm gonna bring you with her, she actually specifically guided me with this. Um, and she had a couple actually messages she wanted to make sure for me to get across, which I don't think has happened really before with a deity when I've talked to you guys. So that's another reason why I'm really excited. So we'll get going with a little bit of housekeeping here, since it's been a little bit since I've been teaching, and then we will get going. I'll let you know really what she wants me to convey to you guys. We'll go through my study guide. Um, and then, like I said, I'm really excited for the journey that I have to bring you on with her today. I'm really excited. I'm going to bring you to her hut. Um, yeah, again, I'm excited. So the housekeeping that we have today, again, my name is Professor Kelsey Coes. If you've never been in a class with me, and you're watching the recording and the video, thank you so much for being with me. I am a Grey Witch practitioner. I consider myself a mystic. I pull from literally everywhere and anywhere. I have views on so many things and everything. I work with deities. I work with the moon archetype energies. Um, my rituals they can be very ritualistic. They can also be very chaotic and eclectic. I write everything that I do myself. So I'm really excited to be here and teach you guys this. If this is your first time here at Divination Academy, please come and find us on Facebook. Send us a DM saying that you want to enroll so you can get access to our chats. You can access to certification programs. You can get a student page created to keep track of your classes and your progress. And then check out our website, divinationacademy.com, so that you can take a look at all of our study guides. I do have a study guide for this class. If you aren't an enrolled student, you can find it on that website. If you are an enrolled student, it would have been sent in the study guide, and you can always send a message to get it. So everybody who's in class today, does anybody need the study guide? Because I can get you the link here quick. I don't see anybody saying that they needed this study guide, so that is fabulous. Okay, so before we really get going into who she is, again, I told you that there's a couple messages she really wanted me to convey to her, to convey to you guys as I was working with her and how she's really coming across to me as I've been working with her recently. So she really wanted to let me know in a meditation that I did with her, and this was about a month ago that I did this with her. She really is the keeper of like everything. She literally had brought me, like, I have been to her hut multiple times. I've been there with her. I've worked with her. We've been through the forest together. But then she brought me through the forest into this clearing where there's this door that literally only she knows is there and exists. And she's the only one that has the key to it. And when she brought me there, she literally let me know, like, this is the place where all is stored. And that's literally all she said to me. And then we left. And it's somewhere that like she's brought me back to before to remind me like that's all she says is like this is the door to it all. And like she's the only one with the key. Like that's always her message, and it's very simple and very like straightforward like that. So she really wanted me to like convey that to everybody. Like she's so much more than just this hag witch, this hag goddess, this connection to your ancestors. She's so much more than that. Like she's guiding, like she's guarding everything. And so that's something that I really wanted to make sure that I let you guys know with her. And then the other thing with her too is that She can be really, really harsh, guys, like incredibly harsh. She's got this very strict grandmotherly energy to her, like the type of grandmother to where like if she's cooking in the kitchen and like she's making like cookie dough and you walk up to her and you like take some out, she's gonna whack you with her spoon and like she's no, like you are gonna get scolded. Like if you are not going like the right path in like life, like she's going to very harshly like redirect you. Um, and I talk about it in the study guide when it comes to this meditation that I'm going to walk you through. One of the first times that I've ever done it with her, when I actually went flying with her in her mortar and her pestle, um, she literally had to like ground me up into pieces while we were doing this. And I came out of it whole again, but it was like there were literally like toxic pieces of me missing. It's like she was able to go through and like purify. So she really wants people to understand that like you're gonna have to really grind and ground to get to the good nitty-gritty stuff and to get the toxins and the purifying out to get to the wisdom and the knowledge that she has to offer you. And so that's really, really big with her. So now that I've talked about some of those messages that she's given me, and like I said, I don't think I've had a deity before that I've taught you guys that has been very direct with what she really wants me to convey. So I wanted to make sure that I hit that first, and you guys had that message from her. So now who is she actually? I've been talking about her and like these messages, and I've mentioned, some of her symbols and who she is and her hut, but like who is she actually? So Baba Yaga is actually incredibly fascinating. Some people actually even only consider her a folklore character. They don't even consider her a goddess, or she's literally just this folklore character and a witch. Some people consider her a monster. Some people consider her a villain in absolutely every story that she's a part of. Some people look at her as the absolute epitome of the old hag, and where you get that image of like that old haggy witch. That's who she like. She's so incredibly fascinating. She uncovers so much. Her name literally Baba Yaga, like it literally just draws you in. Like when you hear it, like it just pulls you in. Like you just want to learn about her. Like at least that's how I felt about her. Every single time, like the first time I was like, okay, interesting. Like I just have to. Like that name literally just pulls you in. She is from Slavic, Russian, and European origins. So she's really from that area. She really starts in the Slavic area first and then moves more towards Russia and kind of comes into Russia. And that's kind of when you get more like this more like grotesque version of her story and who she is. She is said to live within the Slavic forest, in her wandering hut that is on chicken legs. So her home is very actually unique to her. I'm going to talk about it in more detail, and it's actually very central to her myth. But she literally has this hut that just wanders around on chicken legs. And it's actually, and actually, if you've ever seen the anime Seven Deadly Sins, like I think, like that's where I think the inspiration for like their wandering bar, like on the pig, comes from, is actually from her personally. The first time I saw that, like it immediately like sparked that for me. But like there's pictures of it in the study guide too, so you guys can get like an image of it, and I'm gonna bring you there. But it's really actually central to her, and like that's actually where she resides. She's actually not even considered of this world or even the underworld. Like she really exists in this very, very liminal and in between space. And that's what her wandering hut and like what her home really represents. Like I said, it's also incredibly important to her, and I'm going to talk about it in more detail later. Um, she, like I said, she's very intriguing. She'll draw you in right away. She pulls to a lot of people, but very few will actually be able to handle working with her. Because like I said, like she's very intense, she's very primordial, and she can be very strict and very harsh. Very discipline based. Um, like we can learn a lot from her when we're open to her wisdom. She's really connected to our ancestors. She's really shown as like that really bright flame that's burning in the middle of the densest, darkest of forests when you're lost to direct you. It brings you to that really primordial earth, like the beginning of earth and your ancestral generational flame. She represents that death and rebirth cycle as well, very strongly with the Slavic traditions. She's really seen as that Slavic goddess of regeneration, the death and the rebirth. Like she's very, very centered in that. I think that's also a key reason why we see her home very wandering and why we have that as well, because she represents this very, very much so. I also see it similar with this aspect of her in the life and death rebirth Very similar to that of like Persephone as well. Like she gives off that kind of vibe with that regeneration. Just it's very, very primordial. She is a very big staple in Slavic lore. She's found in many, many, many stories, like very, very many stories. And she's a specific character. Like she's specifically named as a specific character. She's not just an archetype. Even when you look at a lot of the Slavic deities, you'll see them paired up and like you can see and draw parallels to Roman deities, but she's not. Like she stands alone. Like she's a very specific character. She's not this archetype that crosses across other pantheons and other cultures, which is another reason why she's very primordial. Like she's a very specific person. Um, what I find incredibly interesting about her is she is really portrayed as equally a villain and also a benefactor. And you see that in her most famous myth and story that has to do with her, which I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of the name. So if you want to correct me, you totally can, but it's Valencia the Wise. So there's a story with her, and I'm going to go about that in more detail too. And she almost always has like this good and bad side to her. Like it's so evenly split. Even when she's like portraying herself as doing something incredibly beneficial, she actually has very dark ulterior motives to what she's doing. So there's that with her. She's very much that duality, and she's very, like I said, she's very equally both. So like I touched on before, like when it comes to who she is, you see her in folk tales throughout Slavic and Russian culture. She's considered a folklore character across many of them. A lot of times you see her like surrounding like doing dark things like eating children who wandered into woods. You see her in some stories where she's actually purposely going out of her way to go kidnap children and bring children back to her, and a lot of other things. But you see her really as that. But then you also see her viewed as like that divine ancestor, that very powerful spirit, that very, very ancient earth. So her lineage is actually unknown when it comes to like her parentage and where she's coming from and things like that. Like we don't really have like any information about her, which is why she feels like and she's seen as much more of a primordial energy and of not being of this world and of the underworld. And almost all of the writings that I've read about her and the research that I do, like it's actually very specific about that. She's not of this world, but she's also not of the underworld either. She may be like the keeper, like of holding the door to it, but she's not of the underworld. She's not of either place. Um, she's also in some writings referred to as the keeper of the waters, aka the fountain of youth and immortality. And this is something that I've seen when I've worked with her. And then, like I said, like she's shown me a door that like only she has the key to and explains that all knowledge is within it. So that's how she's portrayed herself to me. And I've read some other practitioners that she's relayed that message as well. And they've gone through to that space with her as well. Okay, so let me take a break and jump in the chat, see if anybody has any questions so far. Okay, thank you. Baba Yaga eats kids. Yeah, there's definitely stories of her eating kids, but I don't, again, like I don't see it totally as wrong. Yeah, not of this world. Like I said, like it's very specific when I read her writings about that. Like she's she's very, very specific. It's very specific. Like she's not of this realm, she's not of this world, but she's also not of the underworld either. She's in a very, very liminal space. Yep, I've seen her referenced as the Russian hero and the protector of the forest and trees. Yep, I've definitely seen her referenced as that. Yes, honey. Yes, thank you for making that connection. I actually I've touched on it in the study guide and we'll talk about it later, but I see a massive connection with her and Círdan. Actually Baba Yaga seems to be where like I actually can trace back quite a few of these deities that are seen as deities of herbalism, of knowledge of the forest and the trees, of actually just all wisdom, because even in her hut it said that there's a cauldron in Baba Yaga's hut, and I see that connection with Círdan there as well. I also see her connected to a lot of the first deities like Hestia and Hestia. I see her connected to Hestia. I also see her like in this liminal sense, like you can trace a lot back to her. A lot of them can be traced back to her. But yes, she does give out that fairy Keratin vibe. Yes, I definitely talk about in the study guide. I love that you did that too. Oh, that makes me happy. Okay, does anybody have any questions other than what was in the chat? No, that's an anime title right there. What did I say? That's a good anime title. Or is it just the fact that I brought
Space
it?
Grandma.
That is a good tag. That would be funny. Yeah, that would be good. I bet you if you pitched it, somebody would make it.
Probably. I'm actually reading a manga right now called Dandadan, and there is a Turbo Granny, and it is not for smaller kids, maybe older teenagers, but it is hilarious. And Space Grandma kind of reminds me of the series I'm currently reading. So,
I mean, yeah, there are some definitely out there mangas and animes that I've come across.
well, this one is actually about aliens and spirits. They actually bring aliens into it, so it's
That's
kind of cool.
that's interesting. You don't normally see the two coming across. It's either usually one or the other. That's
Mm.
interesting.
There's actually an anime coming out if you're interested soon in
Oh,
April, I think.
I'll add it.
Sorry.
I'll add it to my long list. The list never ends. Okay, so Baba Yaga is Russian fairy tales depicted. Yeah, a lot of times she's depicted as a villain. And I touched about that in the beginning too, a little bit, where I talked about kind of in the Slavic region, she's seen really more as like um that primordial, ancestral energy, that wisdom where you go when you're lost. And then, she gets more of that grotesque witch hag vibe when she moves more towards that Russian region. So I did touch on that a little bit towards the beginning. But yeah, she's definitely seen like that. Definitely portrayed that way. I think we all have the ability to be that way, and that's what I love about Baba Yaga. And like one thing that she really, really represents is like she forces us to look at the absolute worst parts of ourselves. Like the things that we think about that we really truly would actually want to do to other human beings, that we don't want to admit that we would think about. Or the really, really, really dark, worst parts of like who we are and the dreams and desires that we have. I mean, there's a reason why I know an incredibly large amount of serial killers, and I've been incredibly fascinated with them since I was like 10. Some people have deep, deep dark thoughts, and like actually all of us do. So Baba Yaga like really forces you to look at that. If anybody wants to tell me that they've never genuinely had a thought of wanting to harm another human being, you need to do some shadow work, because everybody has had the thought of wanting to harm another human being at one point in time. And she really forces you to understand that, look at it, and understand that it's a part of humanity. And that's like one thing I super, super love about her. I have one first name's alien. Oh, sorry. I read the chat and I got distracted. Okay, so I need that move out of my way. So back to my study guide. Okay, so her importance during ancient times, I wanted to touch on this because of the way that society and culture views women, especially older women now, versus the way that we view women then. Her role's different, and that's also why I think her view and her image has changed to where she's seen more as like that hag and that like nasty, villainous energy that you just don't want to be around. Because back in ancient times, older women were actually seen as the keepers of the family. They were seen as the keepers of the tribal wisdom. They were seen as the keepers of their tradition, and they were revered as such. So, like those women in ancient times, they were known as being thought to have all of the answers to the mysteries of birth and death. And they were the ones that were usually your medicine women. They were the ones that were qualified to care for your sick and the dying. And they were the ones that had that function, which held a very high place of honor within society at that time. So we have to remember that like she used to be revered this way, so that like her image would have been very different. When you look at a lot of those older writings, you will actually see her portrayed a lot differently. She doesn't come off as like in the storytellings, you don't see her as like this hag with her iron nose and everything else when we get to her description that's about her. So we have to remember that that's important, and like that knowledge matters, and that's really, really what she's holding on to. So when it comes to understanding who she is, part of it is also breaking down her name. So it's broken down into two parts. and this is the best version of translations that I can get because there's actually quite a few different ones. But the first part of Baba actually translates to old woman or grandmother. And I may be mispronouncing that as well. I've tried really hard to like listen and try to get my mouth to actually repeat the words correct. I'm just really bad at it. I don't know what's going on with that disconnect there. So if anybody ever wants to correct me, you totally can. And then depending on the region, that it can either be used as a term of endearment or as an insult. So it really depends. It really depends on the region and where you're at. But it essentially means and it points to the fact the woman is in her elderly years, most likely is going to be like ugly or misshapen in some way. And so you end up seeing that connection to her being a hag goddess because of the translation of that word and what it means and the connotation of it. Also, it's seen as being given to give women very, very certain levels of power and wisdom, and that is wrapped up in with that as well. The second part of her name, the Yaga, is a little bit harder to translate and understand because there are actually literally dozens and dozens and dozens of translations of this when I was trying to sort through all of this. When you're looking at all the various languages in Eastern Europe and Russia, but it really, the most common ones that it comes down to mean terror or horror. Serpent's very common, witch, a dryad or a wood nymph as well was popping up very often. And then also like just like a chill. Like it literally was like a chill down your spine was kind of how it was like translating and coming up. So that's really kind of like who she is and what she embodies. So she's really like that old womanly, like they really put like this very like harsh, like kind of terrifying energy behind her. But you should still be willing and open to work with it, in my opinion. So her images and what she looks like, it's you see her a lot of many different ways because she actually is known to be a shapeshifter. But a lot of times you see her kind of like as a monster or as like your more traditional version of like you see the witch with like the bump on their nose and like the really, really long pointy nose and like the grotesque like skin. And you'll see her like that in images. Just as like an old like hag, so like very wrinkly skin, long pointed like the pointed nose is pretty common with her. You'll see her with like the gray hair, like very, very, very elderly and old, and like a grandmotherly figure. She to some is considered a hero. Some like I said, some she's considered a villain. And then we also see that she may even be traced as far back as the goddess of the hurt Tbiti, which is actually pretty far back. And then you see her like images also, a lot of her images will kind of represent like the Hestia and the Holda and the Bercha of the Germanic origin. I see a lot of connections with her imagery there. So I see a lot of them kind of looking and being described as her. And then we can also draw that connection with the Celtic goddess Cerridwen as well, because you see the herbs and all that connection to herbal knowledge and all that connection to the cauldron and all of that in her images as well. Um, to modern witches and Slavic pagans, when I was doing research and looking through it, a lot of them consider Baba Yaga to be considered a witch goddess who lives deep, deep within the birch forest. And she's considered the keeper of all herbal and healing wisdom, and that she only grants her knowledge to those who are worthy and whom seek initiation. So with her, that's very specific that you must go through like the initiation rites that she wants you to go through in order to be able to actually have access to any of the knowledge that she has to grant you. Um, like I talked about before, nowadays she's really, really kind of turned into that wicked witch of the forest. She's seen as very ugly and old. Sometimes you see her described as having iron teeth, like boar tusk, and bear claws. You'll even see her sometimes depicted as wearing a necklace of skulls and smoking a pipe. And then sometimes you even see her with like a golden or iron foot. There are quite a few images where you see like a snake as like her bottom half to where like she literally doesn't have human legs, but like she's literally like the bottom half of like a snake. And I feel like that's kind of just a representation of her shapeshifting abilities and also the fact that like she is seen as being like the keeper of mysteries, and snakes are just that's such a representation for them and such a symbolism for them. You'll see her very often sometimes wearing an apron and holding like keys while she's wearing that apron while she's like in her hut. And it said that that key actually is the key to all life's mysteries. When you see that in imagery, you'll also very often see her flying in her mortar and holding her pestle, like literally flying, like she's flying a broom. She flies in her mortar. That's where you see her. Sometimes you'll see her a broom, but usually she's actually using her broom within her hut, like to sweep it away. When she was actually first documented in about 1755, like, but that's that we know of, and that's the written documentation of her, and that's as far back as I've found so far. I'm still looking to see if I can find any further back for her, like in written documentation. There's a ton of oral tradition about her way farther back than that, but the writer says that literally has like these bony legs, iron teeth, super misshapen and repulsive features, including like that long women's nose, long elongated breast, that you can see her everything, like all of her bits, her buttocks, her vulva, all of that. So she's really, really depicted, like that's how she's depicted when we first see her. That long iron nose seems to stick and like follow through all the ways. I have a couple of different theories about that because in some of the stories it talks about how like she can literally just like smell humans, like she literally just she can smell us from like so far away. And I think that actually has to do with the Claire. I think she actually really just it's one of her clairs that she's like really really in tune with. And the fact that she's also liminal spaces, so I think that's part of it as well. um Okay, so that's literally what she appears like. But again, when you work with her, she may appear to you differently. I listed off a lot of different versions of how like she comes across, how we see her depicted in art, how we see her depicted in writing descriptions. But typically for me, she does come across as like that old hag, that old grandma hag that's, got that big long nose. And she does always come to me that way. But she may come to you in a different way. So just be open for however she'll show up for you. So she is considered to be associated with the dark forest, death, rebirth, sickness, dying, but she's also healing and renewal and absolute sage wisdom. She is known to know like literally how to cure pretty much any ailment with any herb. Like if you need to know like how to cure something with an herb, she's who you ask. Like she knows like hands down herbs like no other. I would even say she's got Keratin beat, and Keratin said to be amazing, but like Baba Yaga, no, like it's just something else with her. She, like I talked about before, she's got that very wise grandmother energy. She's very strict and harsh, but for your own well-being. So like she's always has your own well-being in mind, but she's very, very strict and harsh. Her energy is most strongly felt in autumn, leading up to Mabon, and then through Samhain. Samhain is a massive time to celebrate and connect with her. She's really, really there in that liminal space when the leaves are changing color and the temperature begins to start to get cooler. She's really, really there in that liminal space. Okay, let me jump into the chat here quick. Do we have... I did not know that, Vincent, because I don't watch movies. So, thank you for letting me know that. That will be my fun fact of the day. I hate movies. They're too short, and the stories are not long enough. I do not like that. It just makes me mad, and I'm pissed off at the end of every single movie I watch. Oh, I did not see that interpretation of Yaga. It means she jumps in the forest. I will add that to my list. It doesn't surprise me though, but I love that. Do you teach? I don't teach tarot. I do know tarot, and I'm gonna start offering readings for people soon. But we do have a class on YouTube already, for tarot that Alex has taught. I don't know if I will teach. I might. I just have so many things I want to teach, but right now I don't. Is Baba Yaga? Yes, she is an herbalist. She is like literally, like I touched about just a little bit ago, like she is like if you want to know anything about herbs, like she is who you ask. For any type of ailment, any way, shape, or form, like she is who you go to. Yes. Especially the ones that are more like poisonous and toxic, like nightshade and things like that. She's brilliant for working with those too. if that's something that like interests you and you want to work with. Nightshade is actually even one of the correspondences for her. Honey, go ahead.
No questions. I just wanted to input something. I could be wrong on this. I've only read about it, but I know even today in Russian culture that older women are still seen as like the elders of society, the ones that you respect at all costs, pay attention to, like if you're on a crowded train and there's a kid, a pregnant woman, or an older woman there, you get up for the elderly woman. She the like the kids can stand on their own. The pregnant woman needs to stand apparently. I mean, the author of the articles, one of the articles I read said that they actually seen like a 9-month pregnant woman get up to offer her seat to an older woman
Hmm.
because they're that held so that high in society still today.
I did not know that. I didn't look into that far, but it wouldn't surprise me, with the rest of the culture. But that would be that's awesome. Thank you for telling me. And I'm actually gonna go look for some articles after this so I can read about it too, because that's very intriguing. I really, really like that one.
Yeah. Also, but Baba Yaga, her snake form, that could also be like a link to, I believe it's Greek myth, or maybe it's Roman. I get them two mixed up sometimes. But the creature Lamia nowadays, I mean, it's
Mm.
like half snake girls, but the actual myth was a half snake woman who ate children. That could be where Baba Yaga gets her snake form from, is the connection between those two.
That's possible. Um, I find a very strong link between Greek pulling from her actually. Especially like Hestia pulls from her really hard. No, that's totally possible. I'm gonna look that up after this too. Let me. Where are my post-it notes? My son took them all. Yes. Okay. Oh my goodness, man, nobody told me, by the way, guys. Nobody warned me that like you get like this time frame when they become toddlers and it's really great. Like they're super independent, they can do things, you don't have to watch them all the time. And then all of a sudden this little flip switches in their brain and you literally can't look away for like 2 seconds. Like 2 seconds. What I have found this week, my son at one point took poop and shoved it down our vents. My sink has been full of cars. My fridge door has been torn off. Like I just, whew, everything keeps going missing. Okay, so I'm sorry. My son totally distracted me because I needed my post-it so I couldn't find it. So yeah, nobody warned me about this, and it's really fun.
Well, they're warning the things randomly disappearing. That will probably happen for a couple more years.
Oh,
At least I know with my mom and did with me.
oh
So
man, I'm sure. And where I keep finding where he's choosing to go and hide things too, I'm like, but why? Like, what was your brain telling you to like, why?
trust me, it makes sense to him.
I literally, he was throwing a fit earlier because he has a little phone that he uses to help communicate and like he watches cartoons on it too. And like he was throwing a fit because he couldn't find it. And I found it in the fridge in the bottom of the fruit drawer. So like he literally opened the fridge, went in the drawer and like put it in there and like just forgot about it. Yeah, it's okay. So we'll get back. I'm sorry, that totally was a sidetrack. But yeah, it's been fun. Poop in the vents, that was great. That was lovely. Okay, so we'll get back to the study guide, guys. Okay, so Baba Yaga and the liminal space. I've talked about it, I've mentioned it a lot. So let's get into depth about this. So, like I said, in so many of the writings I keep coming across, she's really considered not quite of this world. Not really quite of the next either. She remains very much in this in-between space between the physical world and the spirit world. And that to me is like almost 100%, like not 100%, 80% of what her hut is representing. And that's why it even exists, because she needs some place to call home. And that hut is her pocket of space that she exists in. Because you literally can't, like, it can't be seen with the physical eye. Like it's, you have, like, it's a whole thing. But she is considered a crone witch, and oftentimes crone witches are referred to as, part of the dark goddess archetype. Sure, they're considered part of that crone archetype. And with that being attached to her, that also makes her, again, seen as that liminal witch. Because of that aspect, because of what she's entertaining, and her connection to death and life both at the same time, her connection to morality, her connection to the frailty of even being an old elderly woman. She's also connected to some, in quite a few stories, she's connected to ghosts, who literally like roam the earth. She's connected to quite a few different type of forest creatures, that are seen as like mythological creatures that just roam the earth endlessly. I'm not going to be able to pronounce them, so I'll spell them, but the Ruslsalka and the Leshy, Leshy. Those are I kept coming across that in a lot of my research with her, which connects her to like that death and that liminal space and the spirit realm and all of that. Um, and like I said, with her being considered a dark goddess, like it's very specific. She doesn't reside in the underworld. Like she just doesn't. She resides in her hut. And now we'll talk about that hut very like in more detail. So it's very strongly connected and a very central theme to her mythology. It helps associate you to the familiarity of your home and your ancestral connections. So that's a big reason why like it's seen there, because you'll see her like very often like in her kitchen. She gives off that like grandmother in her kitchen cooking for her family and giving you that ancestral vibe and that family connection. But again, still like that with that strict, harsh, like you are gonna do what you need to do for your own well-being energy. So that's really, it's very, very central to her. Where is it and what does it look like? So the tales say that it's deep in a birch forest and that it can move and it wanders all throughout that forest. It literally just walks around on these super, super giant legs that it sits atop of. And most often it's written and depicted as giant chicken legs. So like if you can imagine like a giant chicken and then take the chicken part off and just keep the legs and top a house on top of it. That's what her house is said to look like. In other tales, though, her cabin sits on top of legs of a goat or even spindle wheels. I like the spindle wheels personally because with that spindle wheels, it ties her to spinning and spinning thread. And almost every deity that has anything to do with spinning and spinning thread has to do with the thread of fate and really being tied to fate and humanity and like being very, very pivotal to our existence and being such a primordial energy. And that I really, really like that for her. And I think it's super interesting to have it seen that way. And then to have her, the way that she's conveying her message to me of being the keeper of all knowledge behind that door, and then like also her even having this hut of liminal space, it would make sense that the weaver and spinner of fate needed to exist within their own pocket. And why would they not want their own home to be in? So I really like that image, that depiction of her, but more often than not, you now see it on giant chicken legs. So I don't know if that was an intentional change. I don't know if there was something that they were trying to do with that. More often than not, probably. But it does come up other ways, like I said. And then around Baba Yaga's house, there's a fence with skulls that sit atop of it. Some say it's just bones, but most of them say it's skulls. And these skulls actually glow at certain times. So they'll start glowing at certain times, and that actually becomes pivotal to one of her most famous myths that she's in. And in her cabin, there's actually said to be a large oven that's similar to like looking like a cauldron. And it is actually said that Baba Yaga actually stretches out on top of that oven and cauldron to warm herself, and that it's so large that, and she's so large that she can reach both corners of her home, like literally from one end to the other, cover the whole thing if she stretches out completely on top of it. It is said that the cauldron in her home literally just like screams. It is very like very, 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 very obnoxious about it. Like the energy is very, very intense. It screams of Baba's domain over magic and regeneration and ancestral wisdom and the initiation into the magical arts. And again, this is where you see Carradine popping up again, and you see that similarity between the two there and crossing between the two cultures. Along with, you know, the hut and the cauldron, during the day, you will also see around her house a white horse and a red horse. And then at night, you will also see a black horse. You may also see other wildlife surrounding her, like birds, squirrels, and snakes, but those three horses, they are hers, they are with her. Even when she talks about it in her myth, she specifically states they are hers. Like she specifically says, they are mine. So which also gives her that creatrix vibe, and the fact that like she's that primordial that she created those three beings, and that they are very specifically hers. And almost every goddess and deity we know, they have their, I don't like to call them like pets, but they have their familiars, they have their token animals, they all have them. Well, I guess not all of them, but most of them do. Okay. So, like I said, that hut, there's lots to it. It represents a lot. It's a lot for her. Like when you go to do initiations with her and you go to do any type of like meditations with her, like that's typically where you're going to be going, is into her hut. It's going to be into her home with her. But like I touched on before, like it can't be seen by the physical eye. Like you cannot see it. You have to have permission to have access to it. You have to have permission to even be able to know that it's there. Okay, so I'm gonna jump in the chat, see if you guys have any questions, and then we're gonna jump into the most popular myth about her. Okay, cool. Thanks for the link, Natalia. I do have books listed in the study guide too. I have like a whole paragraph that has, I think like 4 or 5 of them. I have a picture of my favorite one about her, and I even quoted from one of my favorite ones about her too. So you can definitely check that out too. But I always love knowing new websites that have more resources. Go ahead, honey.
What was I about to say? I'm doing good. Um, sorry. Here it is. Um, I was just gonna say, not this may be a little off topic, but you, the Caradwin meditation we did
Yeah.
during class, um, when she took me to her place in meditation for me, she it was like a small hut in the middle of forest with like a little picket fence.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back there again with Persephone when I was bouncing. I think it
Okay.
was Persephone. And I'm pretty sure I seen a white horse there at one point. I did not know why. I did
Interesting.
not even remember that. I mean, I did at the time, but it wasn't something I said because it wasn't important. I wonder if that is just weird.
Honey, you and I are gonna talk after class.
Okay.
This I can go into this just sparked a lot. Yeah, she just sparked a lot for me. For you. Because of that connection. So we're gonna talk after class.
Okay. Oh, Domovic.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I remember what the thing I was going to say. I didn't write it down. Um, it kind of sounds like, at least to me, but Baba Yaga may be like the feminine counterpart to a Slavic house spirit called the Domovai or Domovic. The Domovic is supposed to be like a male relative that lives behind the peach or hearth, and that you're supposed to like feed him occasionally. He's part of the family. He was your ancestor, so you're supposed to treat him well and make sure, like, if your house isn't clean, you know, you haven't vacuumed and dusted and there's piles of dishes, he'll start clanking on things and you'll see dust bunnies rolling across, and that's him telling you, hey, you need to clean my house. And he's like your protector. One of the things about him, it said that if you move, you're supposed to take your Domovic with you. In order to do that, you take a piece of coal, if you have one, and carry it from like traditionally, the coal warms your house. So you take a little shovel, take a small piece of coal, carry it with you to your new house, and put it in your fireplace. And with that coal, the Domovic is supposed to ride, and he will come to your new house. Or in more modern times, or if you don't have a burning fireplace, then you sweep your house going outward, put your broom up with the bristles facing upward, and you carry the broom to your new house, and where you I believe you sweep inward at that point once you enter your house, and the Domovic was supposed to have ridden on your broom, and the uh luck or something, you're sweeping inward,
Hmm.
which is kind of odd compared to here in Western times, where it's actually bad luck to take your broom from your old house to your new.
Yeah, that is interesting. Huh. I have not heard of that, so I'm gonna have to look that up. But that sounds really, really interesting. The only male counterpart like I saw, but again, I don't know. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like I need to expand my knowledge on Slavic traditions and culture a little bit more. Um, I know a lot about Baba Yaga specifically, but I do need to expand. But the only male counterpart is I came across a couple resources that had this idea that she was married to Vales. And I don't know much about Vales and who Vales is. But apparently that's a male Slavic deity that she may have some connection to.
Okay. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Uh-uh.
And I've heard of him, but I don't think I've heard the connection before.
Yeah, I came twice.
Interesting.
I only saw it twice. That's why I didn't put it in the study guide because I'm like, I need to vet this a little bit more. Because I was looking into it because almost every deity, like every goddess we've talked about, like I almost have, like almost always, like they have a husband, like they have a husband, but like she does not. Like she's pretty solo, which is weird. But I also love it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to share that connection there with
Yeah,
the Domovai.
I love it. I'm gonna definitely look into it though after this because I do not know about them and I'm definitely going to. So thank you for that.
Mm. Oh, also, the Rusalka. That
Yeah.
could also be a connection with her snake form, since Rusalka is like is kind of like a water nymph slash mermaid.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't make the mermaid connection. I definitely should have because to me like it came off as very water nymphy.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Huh, okay. 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 See, honey, he always sparks something. He always sparks something every class. And Vincent, yes, I totally agree with what you have in the chat. 1,000%. Like she's incredibly strict, but then at the same time, like she's got that like that soft spot that's like right in the middle that's like ooey and gooey to like be able to allow those. But like I said, like the strictness though is like and to allow you in and to actually gain access to like wisdom and knowledge, like her initiations can be very strict and intense. More often than not, like they're gonna involve service to others and lots of hard work and lots of like chores and very like she's very strict with what she's gonna ask and like the time frame that she's gonna give and like if you don't do those things, like you're gonna get whacked. And she's gonna make you start over. And if you don't do it exactly how she wants it done, like she's got that very strict, but like if you do what I'm telling you to do and exactly how I tell you to do it, because I know what's best, you're gonna get access to like the best ooey gooey love you're gonna find. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It makes a lot of sense. I love it. Okay. So most popular myth that has to do with her is Baba Yaga and again, I'm probably going to be butchering the pronunciation, but Vasilisia the Wise. And there's again, as with every myth, there's going to be multiple different versions of the story. So this is going to be like my most condensed version that I have across all the different ones that I can find. So with all the myths, I always encourage you guys to go look at the sources yourself too, so that you can get all the different versions that there are. So like I said, this is probably the most well-known version of her. So in the tale, Baba Yaga and Felissa the Wise Baba takes on her typical personality as the fearsome witch in the woods. And then there's this young maiden, Vasilisa. And again, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. And if I am, I apologize. I wish my mouth could listen to me better in that sense. But she's sent away by her stepmother and her stepsisters. I put evil in there because, I mean, she really does come off as pretty treacherous. Stepmother and stepsisters, and they actually, like, very selfishly and statistically, like, sent her off away into the woods, hoping that she's going to die in the cold, dark forest. But while she is wandering around in the woods, she actually comes upon the hut of Baba Yaga. And the old woman offers her shelter and food in her hut with her as long as she returns the favor of performing hard work and completing chores around Baba Yaga's home and her house, and any other duty that the old woman might ask for or require. So for 3 whole days, she does every single chore, and most of the tales actually say she does it without complaint. They're actually pretty specific about that. So she does all the chores, and she throws everything at her. So many chores. She has her cook her meals. She has her do all these cleaning, so many hard chores. And while she's doing this, she also has a puppet that's in her pocket that she's actually holding the entire time, which actually is a vessel for her dead mother's soul. And I feel like it's important to note that she has that because it's just representation for later. Um, and then while she's there for those 3 days doing chores, she also meets all 3 horses on the old woman's property. And she's had seen those 3 horses while she was traveling and wandering through the forest before she had come to the hut. And to her, it seemed like the horses actually were the ones leading her this way, and she had kind of fun following them. And there was a white horse and a red horse that would appear during the day, and then a black horse that would appear during the night. And she notices them. She's really curious about them, but she's really kind of like afraid of Baba Yaga. Like she wants to know more about them, but she's pretty terrified of Baba Yaga. She had actually threatened multiple times that if she did not do her chores and she did not complete them every day, she didn't do everything she was asked, like she was gonna throw her in the cauldron and like cook her. Like she was literally very harsh with her, threatening her, and but she was getting food. She had shelter. She was being taken care of. Like her needs were being met. She was making sure that her well-being was being taken care of. But on the 3rd day, Felicia decided that she was actually going to be brave enough and actually ask Baba Yaga a question about those horses. And so she asks about the 3 horses, and she very specifically replies, "The white horse is my bright day. The red horse is the red horse is my red round sun, and the black horse is my black dark night." And she took that answer, and that's all we heard. Like literally. End of the day, she goes about, keeps doing her chores, and then at the end of that 3 days, she's actually granted her desire to go home. Baba Yaga decides, you know what, you've done your work, you've done what you need to do. I'm gonna let you go home. She gives her a skull like one of the skulls that's on the fence around her home. She gives her a skull that lights up the way for her way home. And she returns home with the skull. She sets the skull actually on her stepmother's hearth, and her stepmother and stepsisters are immediately just like absolutely taken by this skull. They can't break eye contact with it. They're so mesmerized by the skull. And in turn, it actually turns them to ash. And then Felicia is actually free from their evil ways. She takes her skull and she returns it back to Baba Yaga in the woods, which then Baba Yaga actually invites her to stay with her and learn her ways and be initiated into the ways of magic. That, like I said, there's a lot of different versions of that story, but that is the most condensed version of that story. It's the most popular one that she's known about. It's the most popular one that she's in. The main takeaways that I pull from that story that I feel are super, super important to talk about with her too. You see the sacred number 3 all over the place. It's all over the place in that story. You see it with her horses. You see it with how many days she's there. You see it all over the place in that story. And 3 is an incredibly sacred number. It's attached to birth, death, rebirth, night, dawn, the maiden, the mother, the crone, the cauldron, and like all of that. It's attached to all of that. You then have her cauldron of regeneration and initiation, which I think is really important. The fact that that's in there. And so like she's got that cauldron, which represents regeneration. It represents the initiation. It represents like a cauldron typically represents all magical wisdom and knowledge is usually kept within a cauldron. So for her to have that and that representation there, it really shows like how primordial she is and like how much access to witchcraft that she has. And the fact that she really is the one that holds the initiations for all witches, if you think about that. We have the blood breast horse, and we have the fact that it's there. There's two different representations I think we see. She specifically talks about how that is the sun, but then I also think it represents menstruation as well and your initiation into womanhood. Because if you look at the three different colors, we have three different colors there as well. The white would be considered that maiden energy. If you want to look at the triple goddess energy, you have the red, which would then be, you know, that mother energy, that you know, womanhood, you're ready, you know, all of that. And then you have the black that could be more considered that crone energy that you see like represented in her horses as well. You have ancestral magic, which pops up. She's holding that poppet in her pocket with the energy or the spirit of her mother that actually guides her and helps her throughout her trial with the old woman, which also brings that association to the dead, to the liminal spaces, and to the spirits attached to Baba Yaga as well. You have the birch forest that's in there, which is a symbolization of regeneration and renewal. And the fact that many European traditions talk about that forest, and they talk about the goddess of that forest being super connected to the earth and a very primordial energy and all of that. And then also with those horses, I love the fact that like they're brought up, and she talks again very specifically that they are hers, like that she created them. And if you look at other things they could possibly represent, you know, the fact that the white horse represents day, the red horse represents, you know, red sun, as in you could also think blood as in life. And then you have the black horse, which is night. So then you see her talking about the fact that she literally creates everything, like the three main essences for everything: life, night, and day. And the fact that she is the holder and the keeper of them, and they are hers and very dear to her. Okay, so now let's get into really kind of like how to work with her, how to know she's calling to you, correspondences, all that nitty gritty, because I've talked to you a lot about who she is. So, and her myths and things like that. There are other myths that she's in, as well. If you want to look into them, there is one that's really, two other ones that are super popular. I have them in here. You have the black geese, where literally her only goal in that story is to capture and eat children. That's a popular one for her. You also have some other common myths, which is will be Maria Morvenna, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, where she actually makes a deal with Prince Ivan to find him a bride, but she actually like really just ends up sabotaging him the entire time. So it's kind of another interesting story where you get to see two sides of her. So you can take a look at that too if you want to know. But there's lots and lots of myths that she's actually in. Like she's actually somebody that you can find quite a few that she's in and that she's characters in. So correspondences. If you have not been with me before, what is a correspondence? A correspondence is an item or a symbol that is meant to connect you to a specific energy through its representation. It's also seen as an item of respect or to honor or to venerate that energy as well, whether it be a deity, an archetype energy, a zodiac energy that the moon's currently in, or anything. But it's really what you use to represent and connect to that specific energy. So specific correspondences for her, she attaches to the zodiac sign of the Scorpio. Colors that you can use are going to be red, white, and black. Your animals are going to be snakes, horses, chickens, any type of little creature of the forest, and then cats as well can be seen attached to her. In some of the images, I see cats often just lurking in the background. Her archetype is going to be that crone energy. You also can see her represented as the triple goddess as a whole, because there are some references and some resources that state that she has two sisters that are also named Baba Yaga that live in the hut with her. So there's actually three Baba Yagas within that hut. And like it's pretty much just like her split into three for all of the energy to be the entire archetype of the triple goddess. For crystals and gemstones, you have garnet, bloodstone, tourmaline, and smoky quartz. Really, any of the really deep reds and blacks. Black stones will be great with her. I like tourmaline for her, and I like bloodstone a lot. Epithets, you have Baba, Boba, Baba Den, and Jezi Baba. I'm sure there's more, but those are the most common ones that I've come across. Herbs and flowers to use and work with her, and like scents for your incense that you can use. Nightshade, ponchachuli, which is actually what I have going right now, and a mix of sandalwood, and then geraniums. And then her seasons are going to be autumn and Samhain, and then her tree is the birch, obviously, because it said that she's that's where she resides. It's literally the only specific thing that we have is she's in a birch forest. Other symbols that'll be attached to her that you can use to represent her and like put in offerings are going to be skulls, flames, brooms, mortars and pestles. Oh, also, I wanted to talk about the skulls and not forget that. In that story, by the way, I absolutely love the whole story and the part with the skulls. Um, and like how magical that is because the very first time that I read that and I read what happened to her stepsisters and her stepmother, I went, that sounds like a crystal skull to me. Like, is this where the legend of the crystal skull started? Because like I'm like, granted, I know all the other details. I know all the other details, but I'm like, is this another one? Like, is this like it just screamed like the Crystal Skulls legends to me. So I just wanted to make that note there. I am not gonna say it definitely is because I have to do more research and make that connection because I've looked at a lot of the different origins with those. But yeah, I haven't gone down that road as far as I would like to be able to say that I want to 100% make that connection. But to me, it just kind of screams that. When you want to work with her to give advice, to give guidance, like that grandmotherly energy, like it's great for advice and guidance, and because she's got so much access to wisdom and knowledge. Healing, especially physical ailments, because of her attached to herbalism, which you can use for her as well as herbalism and working with herbs. Any type of wild crafting, relationship advice, and hedge witchcraft. If you don't know what hedge witchcraft is, it's very woodsy, like you're very, yeah, it's some people claim that you have to be initiated it. Some people claim that you have to like it's more of like a family thing and a family tradition. I don't agree with that. You pretty much just need to be a loner and love to be out in the woods and work with herbs and work with anything that has to do with the wilderness. There's a little bit more to it than that, but hedge witchcraft is something that can be great with her. If you want to look into it more, go for it. But again, when you work with her, remember that Baba Yaga gives very straightforward, blunt advice. She has a lot of knowledge and wisdom to those who very respectfully request and want to improve their witch skills. She's also very great with that. If you want to start a new magic practice, if you want to dive deeper, if you want to expand, if you don't know where you're going on a magical practice on your path, or if you're a beginner witch and yet you want to be initiated in the right way, I don't like to say the word right. If you want to be initiated in a specific way, she would be great for that. Because she is literally the epitome and like the endless cauldron of knowledge for witchcraft, and witch skills. Her expertise are specifically like talked about her herbs and wild crafting, and then hedge witchcraft because she's just on her own and she likes to use everything that's natural and found in natures and forests, and she likes to yes. Also folk magic and ceremonial magic that has to tie with folk magic and healing. She uses a lot of natural items. So if you like to use anything from the earth, the forest, and nature to bring, do healing, she's great with that. She's very well known for making herbal salves and ointments, also teas, and then in meditation, she's great to use in meditation. She can help guide you with what types of healing teas and herbs to use if you need some to help cure discomforts and minor ailments. And a lot of her stuff that I have found, like she's really good with, and her teas, especially like there's books literally that are all on her herbal medicine. Um, really good with upset stomach and colds and like rashes and headaches and stuff like that. Um, but there's a lot of books and resources when it comes to how to work with her in that sense. And you can always just ask her too. So how to know if you should work with her. There's a quotation that I have here, from Madame Pamita, which is the author of Baba Yaga's Book of Butcher Witchcraft, which is honestly probably the #1 book that I would recommend when it comes to her. If you want to be like outside of just like historical research, if you want to like really dive deep into her. And it's just I put it in here because it's just she sums it up so well on like how to like know if you should work with her and like how she is and how she comes across. So she says, be prepared. Baba Yaga is not an easy teacher, and she's definitely no pushover. She will challenge you, she will test you, and she will push you further than you ever believed you could go. But like a tough coach or a domineering drill sergeant, perhaps it's because she believes in you more than you may believe in yourself. To work with her takes courage, intelligence, resourcefulness, and even a little bit of moxie. But if you're ready for the challenge, you'll reap incredible rewards, climbing higher and going further and doing more than you ever thought was possible. That is really the epitome of how she feels and how you know if you should work with her. If you feel that, if that resonates with you, if that's how she's coming off to you, and if you feel that calling to her, she's going to be calling you to her house and to her craft, to her hut, to her home, to learn the very specifics that she has of witchcraft. And she's very knowledgeable in it. Um, Other than that, there are other signs that you can look out for. If birch trees start popping up everywhere, if you start seeing or hearing her name all over the place, if you've had a vision, a dream, or a meditation where she pops up and she approaches you, or you're dreaming and you find her house in the birch forest. Three horses coming to you is also a sign, or if you see one, especially if you see, you know, a white, red, and a black one in a dream or a meditation. If cauldrons, brooms, or spinning wheels are popping up often, if you're dreaming of skulls, especially along a fence line or in a hearth, that would be another indication. Or if you yourself are going through an initiation process in life, at work, or in a skill, or spiritually in your magical practice. Honestly, I feel like Synchronicity of the Universe was fabulous for me right now because I actually really needed her because I started my own business. I'm going through this huge initiation process and transition, and she's been really, really helpful. And she's grounded me a lot in that. And she's helped me come up with some great ideas of making choices and inspiration and making sure that I stick to my discipline, my schedule, and I stop getting distracted about how all the things that I want to do and focusing on what I can actually do and being very realistic about it. So she's great for that. Okay, so how you work with her? Just some ideas, because remember, there are so many ways, and it can look different for everybody. It can look different from you to me. It can look different for me from today to tomorrow. So some ideas. Number one, I always tell you guys, read and research. You need to do your own reading and research, even after coming to class with me. I know I'm incredibly detailed, and I know I go over a lot. I know I talk about a lot, but there's still so much more, and you are actually going to gain your own insights and your own knowledge and your own connection to a deity when you do the research as well. I know listening to me and coming to class with me is research, but expanding it even further. If you're not a reader, you can watch documentaries, you can listen to audiobooks and podcasts. If you've been on YouTube, do you know how much crap there is on YouTube that you, and I'm not saying crap in like a bad way, but just like the amount of stuff that you can watch on YouTube. That's literally like all my husband and I watch now are documentaries and like 2-hour videos of people like me doing like teaching about topics like this. So you can find a lot if you don't like reading of how to do research with her. I have some books in the study guide, like Madame Pimenta's Book of Witchcraft, Baba Yaga, You Baba Yaga by Natalia Clark. There's also Ask Baba Yaga, the otherworldly advice for everyday trouble. That's a great one to read too. I recommend that one a lot too. And then also look at the other myths that she's in that I talked about. Because she's in a lot. She's in a lot of stories. You can set up an altar for Baba Yaga. She is a deity though, and a spirit that likes their own space. Normally I tell you guys that it's okay to put deities on altars with each other, but this is one where I'm going to give you clarification. She needs to be alone. She likes to be in her own liminal space. She likes to be in her own space. So she does like to be there. If you can put her altar near a mantle or near like a wood stove, that would be amazing. If you can't, that's totally fine. But you can enhance it if you can do that. You can give, when you work with her, offerings should be made each time after you make a connection with her or anytime you're asking for advice or getting help, and also just honoring her in general. You can leave her offerings at the altar for her, or you can also bring them outside and leave them outside, especially if you have a forest or wooded area and like access to you. If you know words in Ukrainian, Polish, Russian, or any of the Slavic languages, you can certainly leave her gifts of poetry and songs and things like that. That would be fabulous. You can include objects at your altar that will make her feel at home, like a cauldron, a broom, or a mortar and a pestle. Tobacco and cigarettes are common, and vodka are common to give to her. Potato pancakes and bread. Also wheat And then any like traditional Slavic food, you can have skull decorations and bones and images or statues of her at your altar or around your home even as well. You can go through her initiation process with her. That's another way that you can connect with her and work with her. It's going to look different for everybody. It really just depends. But more often than not, you're going to be required to perform acts of service in her name. Probably in the acts of aiding the preservation of, earth, or also working with herbs will be a way to connect with her for initiation process. She may even ask you and like quiz you with riddles to make sure you know her knowledge. But just be patient, and she teaches very differently. So just be patient, and just also remember it's going to look different. It may look different for you, for me. You can also work with herbs to connect with her and honor her, because she's a master with herbs and plants, because she's so at home in the forest and she has so much knowledge of herbal remedies and usages for ailments. Especially if you want to start studying more of those dangerous herbs like nightshade and things like that. That is a great way to connect and learn from her. As with every dark deity, shadow work is amazing to do with a dark goddess. And she really resides in that liminal space, and she's super connected to that primordial wisdom of the earth and our ancestors. So she's really, really great for shadow work in general. Um, but when it comes to her and like shadow work a little bit more specifically, usually when I'm working with her, like I talked about before, like she's going to show you the deepest, darkest parts of yourself that you don't want to admit to yourself or to anybody else that exists, that are there, like more so than any other deity. Like I said, every human being at some point in time wants to do some type of level of harm to another, whether it's physical harm or verbal harm or something. Um, she really wakes you up to that and makes you aware of it. She also can really pull out your toxic traits and your toxic habits and really help filter and purify through that. And she's really, really blunt and in your face. She's going to let you know the mistakes that you made that made your suffering worse and where you made the wrong decisions. But she's going to do it all because she believes in you and because she has your well-being at heart and she knows what's best. That's how she sees it anyways. So again, like be prepared. She's not a pushover, and she's going to push you, and she's going to show you and take you places you didn't even know you had in you. You can also call to her for discipline, which is actually something I don't see super often, but I really like to use her for this. Because she's at that grandmother, overbearing, strict, like slap your hand away type energy, and that harshness and that strictness and like knowing for well-being and like habits. She's really great for discipline, and using her to call on for quitting bad habits or maintaining your schedule, or using her in spells and invocations where you're setting intentions for discipline. You can also use her for binding and banishing a bad habit or a habit you wish that you want to stop. And I actually find with her, she suggests that when you're doing this and using her in this sense, that you spin in a circle almost until like you're dizzy to help signify that she understands and she's there to help you through like the absolutely like the very difficult task that comes with breaking free from a cycle. And that's why she's really good for discipline and why she's really good for using for that. You can also work with her, like I touched on before, as a triple goddess, because it said that she has two sisters, and they're literally just also Baba Yagas that live in her hut, and she ends up being used in that sense. So you can work with her in that way if you work with that archetype. You can also work with her in guided meditations to be able to meet her and ask for advice and ask for help and ask for the guidance that you need on your magical path. I even wrote out one for you, and it's in the study guide that you can use whenever you want. This one is meant to be solitary. Like this one is meant to be done on your own. So I do have that in there. And like I talked about before, when I was with her and I did this for like the first time, like she literally ground me up into little pieces while we were flying. It was literally like she was just taking all my toxins and bad stuff away and grounding it and to be able to filter it out. But no matter how you choose to work with her, or even if you decide to, because like I said, she's harsh and she's strict, and like she's very, very detailed oriented. She knows exactly what is right, how to do it, and she knows what's best. And some people can't handle that. Some people, that's just not an energy that works for them, and that's totally fine. But if you choose to work with her, just remember you need to show her respect and understanding, and you need to express gratitude for all the wisdom that she brings, and you need to understand the wisdom that she has and how old it is. No matter how harsh she comes at you, you need to show her respect. And that is where I'll leave that when it comes to that. So I will go into the chat, see if you guys have any questions. And then that's all I had before we go meet her today. Let's see. Sabotaging a dude's marriage strongly implies grandma protecting the local women from either the local. Yeah. Vincent, I love it. Strongly implies the grandma protecting the local women from either the local incel or the village idiot. Vincent, that is great. I love it. Honey, go ahead.
That is good. I like that. Um, Small disclaimer, if I may, the for folks that are interested in like um geographically specific lore for Baba Yaga. I know she spans everywhere, but Madame Pamita's book I know specifically is more geared towards Ukrainian ways.
Mhm. I should
Just
have made a disclaimer. Thank you for doing that.
no problem. I'm more towards the Russian aspect, so just I figured in case others were more towards one or the other, put that out there too.
Thank you.
Um,
I definitely should have done that, so thank you.
um, is there many stories with her having sisters?
Only a handful.
Okay.
Only a handful, and they seem to be newer. So I'm still kind of vetting that part of her because I'm wondering if it's something that's slipping in to try to make the triple goddess aspect split up the way every other culture has seen it, rather than letting her encompass all of it. Because
Okay.
any culture where I come across where one deity can really encompass all of that triple goddess archetype, usually I end up seeing somewhere down the road they try to split them up. And I think it's literally just to diminish that their power, and that's how I feel about it. But yeah, I'm still vetting that because I've really only come across like her having two sisters and very few resources.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So can I ask a side question?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever run across uh deities that like are naturally not necessarily triple goddess, but like in triplicate that are mixed genders?
Hmm.
Like for some reason,
Mhm.
Athena and Apollo come to mind. Like Athena could be the maiden, Apollo would more be the adult mother aspect since he works more closely with like Zeus or that, the more mature one versus scampering through the forest. Athena.
Do you mean Artemis?
Yeah, thank you, Artemis.
Yeah.
Or no, wait.
Um,
Oh, wait. I might have that backwards. Athena and Apollo are the brother and sister, right?
Artemis and Apollo.
Artemis and Apollo. Okay, I had that right. Yeah. Wrong name.
Let's see.
Do you know what I'm getting at?
I do. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I don't, I really don't think so. I think it's almost always the same gender. I think it's almost always, I'm gonna, funny, now look what you got me. I'm gonna have to, now I'm gonna look for, I really don't think so. I don't think so. I get where you're coming at with the Apollo Artemis thing. The reason why I'm not making, I can't, the reason why I don't make the connection that way is because of the connection those two have to each other. Because the connection Apollo and Artemis have to each other, the fact that they're siblings, a lot of times the triple goddess, like they're not siblings, they're completely separate, like they're usually very separate archetypes. And like also also that is, in my opinion, it's not a very healthy brother-sister relationship. It's actually very toxic. And I
No.
don't, it doesn't come off as like that harmonious like energy that you need together for that triple goddess field. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because Artemis is Apollo is incredibly possessive of Artemis and incredibly possessive of her. And in some sources, in some research, and in some of my work with her, he's the reason why she's a virgin maiden. It's not her choice and her decision.
Oh.
So it's a very toxic relationship between those two. So I don't, that's why I don't see that connection. Does, does that answer that for you? Does that help?
It does. It does. I didn't actually realize that they had not good relationship. I knew that they were siblings. I knew that they're often
Some
were.
people say that they do, but some
Okay.
sources come off that they don't. And from my work with them and like how I feel about it, it doesn't seem that way to me.
Okay.
It seems very, but I also find Artemis to be Artemis is very mean girl vibes. So that's also kind of part of it too.
Okay.
So yeah. So again, my relation and again, there's so many different interpretations of deities. That's why it's so fun and so interesting. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, sorry. But I'm gonna look.
Uh,
I do see that Vincent says that he's got a resource for like intersex deities. I know of intersex deities, but I just don't know of any that are represented as the triple goddess.
mhm,
So I'm really curious. I want to see this research because that book, because I'm going to use it to try to see if I can find any that represent that triple goddess.
mhm.
Okay. Okay, honey, you just created a whole rabbit hole for me.
What more have you ever seen a triple goddess like the what Mother Maiden Crone with it being male deities instead?
I've seen trinities of male deities put together, but they
Mhm.
don't seem to represent the like what specifically the triple goddess is representing.
Like
They
the young, the middle age, and the old.
yeah, they don't seem to represent that transition. They seem to represent different like entire archetypes within a man. Like when I see them put together in like a trinity, it's usually like you'll see one represents like the power and leadership of a man, while another one represents like the softness and the loving and the tenderness of a man, and then another one will represent the provider. So like I'll see that, but I don't think I've seen it like in the phases of life. So I'll look
Okay.
for that too.
Just going off the top of my head with Greek again, kind of like Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Hades being the soft, the softer guy, Poseidon being the provider, and Zeus being a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 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 yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for some more rabbit holes.
No problem.
You know that I literally have like a whole section that's now like Honey's questions. Like I have like a whole section in my notebook.
No.
And I have like a whole board that's literally like my rabbit holes I'm on. So like I'm gonna have to stick this up there. There's just so
Well,
much. And my
there
husband and I
is.
are like, we're really, really deep into like trying to figure out the true history of the world right now too. So like that's a whole other thing.
Dang. Okay. Good luck with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I know. I've gone on a rabbit hole with Tartaria now, so that's been fun.
Tartaria?
Oh yeah. That's the civilization that existed about 65,000 years ago before the third human reset.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually can find buildings of it. Like we can actually like we're building on top of their civilization.
Ooh.
Find them all over Google Earth. It's really interesting. Yeah, it's trust me, I can't even. Like this is like they are before Atlantis. So it's yeah, I'm going through it along. Yeah. If you could see what I watch on YouTube.
I would actually love that search history.
Oh my God. And my husband, oh my God. Stuff to watch. Oh, I'm also really into like this dude that built like this giant rainforest vivarium in his house. Like it's literally
Ooh.
1,200, like it's 1,200 gallons. So he
Oh, that
has like
sounds
this
awesome.
miniature rainforest in his house because he loves ants and he wants to see what ants do in the wild.
Okay, that's a little odd, but
It's
also cool.
it's really actually fun to watch. I watched a grasshopper eat another grasshopper. Not a grasshopper, sorry. A praying mantis eat another praying mantis today.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was quite fun. Okay, sorry, I got off topic.
You're good,
Okay,
so did I. Thank
any
you.
other questions that have to do with class, guys?
I'm done.
Okay. Okay, so we're at the point where, yeah, I am going to go ahead and bring them to you guys, bring her to you guys. So I am going to shut my camera off. My camera's gonna be off for the rest of class because I don't want you guys distracted by me. I want you to focus on like my words and where I'm guiding you. I will give you guys a few minutes to get yourself grounded and centered in your sacred space, create your energetic container, whatever it is that you call it. All of you have been with me before, so you know what I use. I use energetic container, or typically I'm using energetic container. Go ahead and do that. And while you guys are doing that, I will make sure that I'm getting set up and I'm getting ready. I will get into my energetic container, and then we are gonna go. And just so you guys know, this is going to be different than what I typically do. I'm actually not even going to be casting a circle today. I'm not gonna be doing that. This technique is gonna be very, very meditative. I'm actually gonna have you doing some stuff with your energy. And then hopefully you guys will be able to either go to the hut and see the hut, or meet her and see her, and maybe even be asked to go inside. So I will go ahead and, like I said, you guys are gonna get ready. If you use crystals and want crystals, you totally can grab black tourmaline, like I said, is my favorite, but any of the black or red stones. If you use incense, like I said, I have sandalwood and Montechuoli going right now. That's what I like to use with her. Sandalwood, my favorite. Um, so go ahead, guys, get in your container, get in your space, and I will be back. Hey everybody, I want you to make sure that you are centered and grounded, and you are in your sacred space. And you can feel your breaths coming in and out evenly. Take a deep breath in and out. And another one in and out. And as you continue to breathe in and out, I want you to start to visualize your energy around you. What does it feel like? What do you see? What color is it? How does it smell and sound? How does it taste? As you take another deep breath in and out, your energy field starts to become more clear to you. You start to see the color, and you can start to feel it around you. You take another deep breath in and out. I want you to start to gather all of that energy into one space in front of you. Make sure that you can feel it and see it in a space in front of you, whether it's just slightly bouncing or hovering, or it's sitting there stationary. As you take another big deep breath in and out, I want you to take that energy that's now sitting in front of you, and I want you to feel that energy pull up towards your shoulders. And on your next breath, you're going to pull that energy up towards your neck. And on your next breath, you're going to pull that energy up towards your forehead and the top of your head. And on the next breath, you're going to feel your energy move beyond your head and your shoulders and up above you as if it's floating and looking down. As you take your next deep breath in and out, you will feel that energy just hovering above you, looking down to watch and observe all below it. You'll feel that very distinct separation of your energy from you to up above. And as you take a next deep breath in and you leave that energy up above you, you'll pull your attention down to your heart space and notice that it feels a little bit more liminal. It feels a little bit more empty. You still feel that energetic energy, that ball of energy hovering above you, very above you, looking down, and you also feel that heart space, and you feel that distinct separation of connection. You feel the separation between your body and your energetic spirit realm. As you take a deep breath in, you start to notice if you still see anything around you. With your energy being separated and hovering up above you and watching you, is it now dark and black? Do you feel anything? Do you see anything? Do you hear anything? Do you smell anything? How does that heart space feel in this liminal space? This space, this pocket separated from your energetic body as it floats above your head. As you take a few deep breaths in and out, and you become more comfortable in this separated state, in this liminal space within the center of your heart, as your energy sits separated, floating above you. In your mind's eye now, as you take a few deep breaths in and out, sitting in this liminal space, I want you to picture yourself in a deep, dark, dense, forest. You can hear the critters scurrying on the land around you, climbing up the trees. You can hear the flaps of wings of birds in the leaves. You hear the crickets and the toads. You smell the moss and the grass and the dirt that's all around you. You see the birch trees all around you in the darkness. One after another within your entire line of sight. You take a deep breath in, and even though you feel the fear, you continue to step forward. You feel the ground move beneath your feet, and you may even put a hand out to feel the birch trees as you walk along their line, as if they're guiding you and directing you to a certain specific path. As you follow the tree line and you follow the path around you, still hearing all the forest moving around you in the darkness, you notice there's a clearing coming up ahead. You keep moving forward, feeling the earth beneath you, feeling the trees as you walk by, hearing the birds flying and whizzing now through the leaves, since you've disturbed them as you walk. And as you get closer, you notice some glowing, fainting light. Little orbs scattered, but almost in a direct line and evenly spaced. They make you feel like it's warm and guiding, and it's directing you to a place you should be. As you get closer and closer, you notice those lights. They're actually inside of a skull sitting on top of a fence. At first, you feel a little bit taken aback. It's a little ominous. But that light's so warm and guiding, and it's the only light you see in this dark, dense forest around you. So you continue to move forward, and you continue to listen to the guidance of the birch trees around you, and you move on the path towards the hut that you now see, behind that fence of skulls and bones that are lining it. As you look past to the hut, you notice it looks a little peculiar. It doesn't look quite like what you're used to seeing. It's got a thatched roof. It's got herbs all around it in the yard. It's sitting on legs. As you continue to take in the sights of that house and the hut and everything in the yard around it, and you continue to approach, still with some trepidation, but knowing that that light is guiding you. It's the only light guiding you within this dark, dense forest. You notice that either Baba Yaga may be outside her home working in the yard, tending to her herbs or her plants, or that the door is wide open for you to enter her home. As you walk closer, you greet her where she's at, and you ask her who she is, and you listen for her reply. After she tells you who she is and what she has to offer you and why she's here in the forest, she turns to you and she asks you why you've come to see her, which make sure you answer truthfully, for she will know. As you answer her and you let her know why you've come to see her, she ponders your answer and lets you know if it's a good enough reason for you contacting her. If it is, she invites you into her hut and her home. And as you go into her hut and into her home, you take in everything you see around her. Her oven and cauldron that's just brimming of heat and magic and pulling you towards it. You see her dried roots and herbs all over the place. And you hear her horses outside in the yard. It's nighttime, so the black one's the only one you can see. As you take in everything within her home and her hut, thank her so very much for allowing you inside. And as you sit with her, allow her to ask you any questions she may ask you and respond truthfully. She may be talkative, she may be quiet, depending on the questions you ask and the answers she has to give. As you continue to converse with her, or just sit with her, depending on what's happening, and you continue to sit in her sacred home that she's been so gracious to allow you into, you feel that primordial raw energy around you. You feel the death and birth, and you feel the vast knowledge she has to offer you. You see her key hanging on the hook to the knowledge of all, and you know that she has so much to give you. You see how much she tenderly cares to her herbs around her home. But you also see the cleanliness and the order. As you continue to sit with her or speak with her, you focus on her and her energy and how she's presenting to you. Do you see her as an old hag, as an earth goddess, as the keeper of the liminal space? Is her energy speaking and pulling to you to help for advice and guidance and wisdom? Is her energy calling and pulling at you for discipline and structure and order? No matter how blunt or harsh she's being with any questions you may be asking and answers she may be giving, remember she has access to so much wisdom. She really does know best, and she simply is just trying to help you and get you on the correct path. As you continue to sit with her, I ask that you ask her one final question that you need to ask, and wait to see if she has an answer or any information to give you. After receiving your final message, thank her for all the time that she spent with you, for the conversations you may have had, for allowing you into her home if she did, for being this guiding light in the darkest of forests you've ever seen, for giving you a moment of refuge, a moment of home, a moment and a break within the darkness that's surrounding you. As you thank her, now is the time to make any connections or decisions or plans to possibly meet again. After doing so, you can take a big, deep breath and part ways in whichever way feels comfortable to you. Whether it's a bow or a thank you, whatever you feel you need to show respect and gratitude and part ways. As you part ways, you turn back and you follow back down the path through her front yard, past her black horse and all of her herbs, past the fence of lit up skulls, and down the forest path, back into the dark birch forest. As you continue to walk and disappear into the birch forest, you draw your attention back up above your head where you see your energy that's been sitting there watching the whole time. You grab it with comfort and you pull it back down in front of you and into your heart space, where you guys can now be back together as one. You can integrate the messages you both received during this visit. And whenever you're ready, you can slowly ease back into your body, through your heads and your shoulders, even if it's rolling and wiggling them from the top to the bottom and the left to the right. And whenever you are ready, you can slowly open your eyes and come back to this reality and this space. And remember, if you'd like to make sure that you leave her any offerings or gifts later today, since you did hopefully get a chance to meet her and be with her. So guys, I told you this would be super different than last time. I'm really curious to see how this works. This is what she wanted me to do. She guided, she inspired this. This meditation was all from her. That's also why it was different than what I normally do when I summon and invoke. This is what she had guided me to do. So if you guys want to talk about it, you certainly can. But I also, like I said, say in every single class, working with a deity is incredibly private. It's incredibly personal. I never expect anybody to share or say anything. But if you had a fabulous experience, if you were able to meet her and talk to her, if you want to talk about it, you certainly can now. If you have any other questions about her, you can certainly ask me now. Otherwise, that is class for today, guys. And I really, 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 really hope you enjoyed it. And I really, really hope you got to meet with her. I really, really, really do. Especially now, it seems like everybody's just really struggling right now. And there's just a lot going on in the collective. So you know what, Vincent? I actually got that message from her last week, which is a big reason why I ended up not even trying to schedule a moon ceremony yesterday, which I felt super bad about because Virgo is like, oh, that's me. And like, I really wanted to experience that with you guys. But yep, she told me literally last week that I have been taking on way too much and I needed to rest. So I am glad that she did that for you too. Granny burnout prevention. You have some great what you have some great stuff you come up with. You are so creative. I love it. Okay, honey, go ahead.
Um, the energy ball meditation
Mm-hmm.
that I kind of backed out of that.
Okay.
I was doing good at first, but then after a minute, once the visualization started with the meditation, yeah, I don't know how to put that, with the forest part. Um, I my chest felt really heavy, like
Okay.
more than normal, so I backed out of that and then just did how I normally do for like astral meditations,
Okay.
and that worked a lot better for me.
Okay. So it was just too heavy, too much, too intense of an energy for you to handle.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I felt empty.
Okay.
Like I felt like I just had a like my body was just a shell, which I think was
Ah,
probably the purpose, but
yep, it is on purpose.
yeah.
That's okay. Thank you for the feedback. I was curious if people were going to be able and willing to like want to sit in that energy because she is so liminal. Like I really wanted to, I really wanted to try to force you guys into that space. But I also know it's really, really hard to be in that space and it can be really, really heavy. So okay, so good to know. That's good to know. Okay.
But once I did like my normal astral part, I the forest I was in, it wasn't nighttime. It was like
Hmm.
probably like the time it is now, about afternoon. Uh and walking through the forest, it was twisty and turvy and twist and turn, you know, blah, 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 words. Um, a lot of sharp curves in the
Hmm.
path the trees took me, and I could see that same lake, but knowing what a birch tree looks like now, that was not actually what I was seeing before. Um, but I wasn't scared by the skulls or that. I actually went up to it and kind of like touched it, like caressed its head and that, like it was a person.
Okay.
And it worries me a little bit that you're writing like a shrink.
No, I'm just you're making some really interesting because I wanted because we're gonna talk about the connections afterwards. So I really wanted to hear what you were because you're there are things happening in for you now that happened, I think, with Carradine.
hmm
So that's
Okay,
why.
yeah, yeah, you're good. I was just joking, but um, and and like the whole yard was just nothing but dirt and herbs, and I didn't see her anywhere. But the hut was also not the hut I saw with Caradwin. Um, and when I walked up, I asked for permission to like walk into the yard, be respectful.
Hmm.
I didn't get a verbal answer, but I got like a okay. So I went towards the house, which was up on chicken legs, so I could not get to it.
Okay.
But there was a hatch like behind the legs, in between them almost.
Okay, interesting.
Which I had actually, I think I've probably seen it in a book somewhere or something, because I vaguely remember that image, but I can't place from where. And I've been having a lot of deja vu moments lately. I don't know why. Not just with witchy stuff, but in general.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting too.
so when you said ask who she was, I did not ask who she was. I just announced for her, kind of like I just said her name. Um, Actually, I said like Babushka Yaga, but
Yep.
grandmother Yaga. But
Yep.
and then she just popped up behind me. Actually jumped, like physically, actually jumped. I asked her if I could come in. She or I she asked me what I wanted. I told her I had no idea really advice or any wisdom you could give, and she kind of walked around me, said, "Hmm, okay," and to told her house to come down to her, which since it was on chicken legs, it didn't actually go all the way down to the ground, and I
Kind of like
couldn't,
bent. Yep.
yeah, and I couldn't actually reach all the way up to it. So, I was trying to climb up there, but then the red horse came up and laid in front of the steps. I didn't want to step on it, but it like neighed at me to like, come on, get up there. And so I actually used the horse to get up to the house.
Hmm.
I think that the horse. And when I was in there, I went to look around. She said that it was rude to snoop in people's houses. I told her I wasn't trying to snoop, I was just looking around. She said, "Okay, go on." She was piddling in her kitchen. I went to look around in her living room, and I was looking. She had like books on shelves and everything. Everything was very orderly, with like doilies on the back of a chair and stuff. Like giant, like Nana type doilies. Um, and I think they're actually probably Afghans, brown Afghans or something, but uh I went to turn around, she was just randomly behind me, so I jumped again, and she said, "What do you want to know?" I said, "I genuinely don't actually know. I I don't really have any set questions." She said, "Well, you're here, so you must want to know something. Up with it." So I just started kind of babbling a little bit to figure out what it was that I wanted to ask her, and after a minute, she helped me figure out what I wanted to say by just kind of like her very blunt, on with it. That's not it. Go on. Responses, and I got my answer. Um, and then I told her, "Thank you. Uh, may I see you again?" And she said that I will see. She was back in her kitchen doing what she was doing as we were talking after I figured out what I wanted to say. And when I asked her if I could see her again, she stopped, like thought for a second, looked back and said, "You will see me again when you have more knowledge." So I said, "When I have more knowledge of you." She said, "No, knowledge in general, not just me or my culture. When
Nice.
you learn more, I will be there, or I will see you then," or something around that. So I went to tell her thank you again, and she just kind of waved her hand and said, "Now get out." And the trap door opened beneath me, and I went to fall, but I actually didn't go the distance to fall. I just like landed like 2 inches. Like I fell from like 2 inches above the ground in front of her house on like the pathway to the house. I was like, okay, that was weird, but cool. So I got up, and after I went past the fence a little bit, the fence entryway, I kind of got a portal back to the beginning of trees, and then I snapped myself back to where I was, and then I did what I do to get out of astral travel.
You had a very, very amazing experience, and I really like that for you. And you had a lot of, there's so many times where I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, that sounds a lot like her. Like her yelling at you for snooping, and like that sounds a lot like her. I'm so glad. Okay, so but I will have to structure it a little bit different next time. I might just record then the solo meditation so you guys can try that with her too, so that you don't have to try to separate the energy. But I love that you still got to do that. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Your meditations are always very vivid, and I love that for you too.
Yeah, I feel like they're more vivid when I can or when I'm like an astral version, or like I use my, for lack of a better term to use, because I know it's Celtic, I don't know what another term to use for it, but like when I use my fetch.
Yeah,
Yeah. That is,
that makes sense. That makes a
yeah.
lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And
Okay.
I did when I was with her, I did still feel like that heaviness in my chest, but it wasn't
As heavy.
as, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Thank you for sharing with me.
Mhm. Of course.
Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we are good to go for class today. We are a couple minutes over. So, okay. I don't see anybody popping up. Okay. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I really, really appreciate it. And I think next week we're on Divine Masculine, and I think we're doing Loki next week. And I know I had classes that got completely canceled, and I have to get them back on the schedule. So please just watch the schedule. I have to go and rearrange it a bunch. So I'm not even gonna say what's happening Thursday because I don't remember. And I know that I need to get an Ascended Masters class snuck back in there, and I need to get a Demons class snuck back in there, and I think the energy class got moved. So just watch the schedule. It's probably gonna change a few times. But I know that next Sunday I'm pretty sure we're doing Loki. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. So bye everybody. Thank you so much for being here and have a good rest of your day.